I'm Steve Weinberger, CEO of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation.
My name is Frank Williams, and I am the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Education Partner.
So the Young Lions Jazz Master Sessions is a unique program that connects university, jazz educators, local professionals with students of jazz, mostly high school students, really beyond the greater Tampa Bay area, all over Florida, because it started as a main event that we did, I think, going back 5 years ago in December with our great partner over at Ruth Eckerd Hall, where we bring all of these wonderful high school ensembles in for really a shared experience of music with group clinics and instrument-specific breakout sessions and all kinds of really great learning going on. And then that program evolved out of the big event at the end of the year to go actually into the schools and replicate that experience working with band directors.
The funny thing about this is I remember how this started, and kind of hanging out with our mutual friend Lee Maidenberg after one of our Journey with Jazz programs. And he asked me, so if you had your wish, what would be the next thing you would create? And I said, anything? He goes, yeah. So I thought about it, and back in the 80s, there were jazz festivals at University of South Florida where you could bring high school jazz bands together. Sometimes college jazz bands would be there, and the bands would get a chance to play and hear each other and get evaluated by judges who were professional jazz musicians. Later on in the 90s, the same thing happened at the University of North Florida. And here lately you have the Savannah Jazz Festival and the essentially Ellington and a few others. My idea was to combine the best facets of all of those. Have the performances of jazz bands performing for each other and an audience so kids can hear what other kids are doing. Also have professionals giving master classes to enhance the understanding of the instrumental capabilities, issues, how to overcome those things, whether it's practicing or improvisation or whatever, with the kids, and specific to their instruments. And then also have a segment of time where kids could just freely interact with each other, whether it's over a meal and a break before the award ceremony or whatever, because some of the most important learning that takes place when kids are just hanging out, talking about what they do, what they love, and exchanging contact information in order to keep that camaraderie going. And the same thing with band directors. So it is a very, very rich environment, not just for the band directors and for the college professors who are doing the clinics and also recruiting some fine kids at this location, but for the kids also to do sharing. And it's in a great setting at Ruth Eckerd Hall, and let's just say the awards that they get are quite appreciated by the groups, and it's non-competitive. It's not about a first, second, or third place. It's about let's all come together and learn from each other, and the most we do is to offer a performance opportunity for what we would call the band of the day at the beginning of the award ceremony. So I thank Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation for allowing me to put together a festival that contains all of the important things, at least for me, that help to stimulate higher levels of jazz education and camaraderie among educators and budding young musicians who play jazz, who are affectionately called Young Lions.
That's right, and I love the fact that it's not a competition.
Yeah.
And to touch on what you said about the interaction of the students, it is really cool to watch. It's a relaxed atmosphere. I love the fact that we have these organic jam sessions that kind of happen in between the learning and the moments for the kids to play with each other, because I think that's something unique. Could you touch on how this program has evolved into the school system by working with band directors?
Yeah, well, we were limited to 10 bands statewide at the main festival, And of course, there's 17 high schools in Pinellas alone. And in the Tampa Bay area, there's probably 125, 150 schools with jazz programs. And I thought, you know what? Not everybody's going to get to come to our main festival, and there is a need for jazz band directors who have all kinds of backgrounds. Some are not jazz musicians, some are classical musicians.
Right.
There's a need for them to have high-level jazz musicians coming into their schools and mentoring and working with their kids, and also guiding the directors. So we made this a mobile program where we go in with specialists on every instrument. I go in to work with the director as well as to work with the band at some segment. And in a 2-hour, what I call jazz band boot camp, we do the very best we can to elevate a jazz band in 2 hours with as much as 2 months progress by simply giving them the intricacies of the proper interpretation and performance of this music. That's very, very important. And because of the structure of the foundation, something like this for the average high school could never happen because they couldn't afford it. But thanks to the generosity of the foundation, we're able to do this for free for these directors. And it's one of the fastest growing segments we have that is pre-pandemic.
Yeah, and I also love the fact that we are able to engage a lot of local professional musicians who live and work in the vicinity of the schools we visit to actually help us deliver the experience, because the main event is focused mainly on university jazz educators and some professionals, some local professionals, but going into the schools has really opened a lot of doors to engage more musicians in our area,
right.
And that's a good thing.
Right, and the thing is that some of those relationships that start with just these Young Lions in the Schools program continue because directors make these associations with local jazz musicians in the area and then call them back again to do little clinics and workshops for their kids.
Yeah, Young Lions Jazz Master Sessions.
Yeah.
A dream come true for Frank Williams.
Yeah. In the schools.
The Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions, another really neat program that was born out of the challenges from 2020 and the pandemic. We really adapted the Young Lions Jazz Master Sessions program in a virtual way by engaging our family of local professional musicians and educators initially, and then educators and professionals that are not necessarily in our backyard but are all over, to create a resource that can be accessible online. This is done with sessions, live sessions that students of all ages can participate in, but those sessions are recorded and then archived. So they're archived as a video, and they're also archived as part of what we created, this new podcast, the Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions podcast. And in less than a year's time, there are hundreds of items of content where students of all ages and abilities can access instructional sessions and historical sessions and conversations, and it's just been really inspiring, because not only are we building something special, I know, but we're also supporting regularly a lot of local professional musicians and not so local professional musicians and educators that were really hurting during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's very, very important stuff. The good thing here is that we have accumulated so many of these that we're now starting to be able to categorize them. So you have a section for brass players, for trumpets, for trombones, a section for saxophone players. Some of those sections are even broken down to baritone and tenor and alto saxophone. For rhythm sections,
Right.
some of those sections are broken down into drum set, to bass, to piano. So there are specific videos that an individual instrumentalist can watch to get top line information about the proper approach to playing the instrument in the jazz context. You're right that we are engaging a lot of local musicians again, which during this pandemic, they need that work. But we are also creating a permanent archive of resources for kids all over the country going forward. In addition to that, since the pandemic, we have this new platform called Zoom that everybody uses. So we're able to simply have someone dial into a Zoom session from anywhere in the country. And we've had some of the best and the brightest. The great Wycliffe Gordon, phenomenal trombone player, has a conversation with me on there. Scotty Barnhart, who is the director of the Count Basie Band, I mean, what a legacy that is, has been able to do, I think, 2 segments on the history of jazz trumpet, which is a very, very important thing to him as a trumpet player. And we have others coming with Vincent Gardner and so many other people. It's just a fantastic resource for teachers and students. And as we continue to categorize these things, there's some things that are general and there's some things that are specific to the instrument. There's some things that band records can play in a rehearsal because they're general, and there's some things that band records can point to a section. Go check this out to get some indication of proper alternate fingerings for whatever instrument, or good finger technique, or good breathing, or good tone production. It is a wonderful archive of resources for students of all ages, because initially we started doing sessions for beginning trumpet and intermediate trumpet and advanced trumpet, so there's something for everybody in that archive. I think that is also important because you now have older semi-pros logging in to check out some of this information so that they get better on their instrument, although they are, for the most part, amateur musicians.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's been, I've got some really good feedback from band directors who were really challenged and struggling to identify what the new normal way of teaching is going to be in this climate. Mm-hmm. And having this growing resource to point students to, even if it's just a requested sort of extra credit type of listening, mm-hmm. or required listening in some circumstances, it's been really inspiring to them and very useful.
Yeah, and even when we are back to some sort of normal, which may be coming sooner than later, this particular archive will still be valuable, and I guarantee you heavily used by students and directors alike.
There's been a couple of new series that have been part of the Young Lions virtual sessions, including a What I Love About series that takes a little bit deeper dive than the Stop Time series with you into a particular artist, which has been really neat because it's been giving a platform to local musicians to talk about the people that really influence them. Mm-hmm. And that's been a lot of fun. And you mentioned the Conversation With series with some industry folks and professional musicians from all over is really adding to this growing treasure.
Exactly.
It's going to be fun to continue to build this, and as we resume our traditional activities, it's exciting to know that band directors, students, and everybody has this free resource courtesy of Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation and its many partners.
Yep, I know we're time sensitive here. We just lost a legendary jazz drummer, a gentleman named Ralph Peterson, who was one of my son's mentors and teachers in the Washington, D.C. area. He lived between Washington, D.C. and New York. We just lost him, and one of the things that I'll probably be asking that son to do is to do a clinic on what I love about Ralph Peterson. Since he knows this guy personally, worked with him, played with him, that's the kind of thing we're trying to bring to kids in a permanent archive, things that are unique and things that are important and things that will help them move in the right direction in their musical development.
Young Lions Jazz Master virtual sessions.
Yes.